everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Rachel and I am knitting. Not right now, but most of the time, and I have been knitting, so I'll tell you all about it. Today's video is episode 21 of my weekly podcast series, which is a series where I show you what I've been knitting, spinning, or acquiring over the course of the last week. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you're subscribed and we'll dive right into it. Actually, no we won't, because I want to tell you something first. There's a lot of new people around here, so welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching because you were pulled into my channel from the first installment of my Scotland recap and you're disappointed to see a video that has been uploaded that is not part 2 of the Scotland recap, don't worry, I upload videos on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, Tuesdays being my podcast upload day. So just hold on, and in a few short days you will have installment number 2 of my Scotland recap. So it'll be worth the wait, I promise. I don't really know for sure, actually, because I haven't finished editing it yet. So, you know, it'll be what it'll be, and I hope you like it. But if you don't, we all have bigger fish to fry. All right, let's move on. So, okay, basically, to cater to those of you who may be a little bit newer around here, my podcast is structured very similarly to the majority of other knitting podcasts that I'm aware of. I start off by going over updates on the projects I've been working on. Then I go into my spin diary, which is when I talk about what I've been spinning on my spinning wheel or my e-spinner. And then I go through any yarn or fiber or notions that I may have acquired during the course of the past week, and then I round it all out with some announcements. All right, so there's no reinventing of any wheels happening here, but it is my version of the wheel, and hopefully, presumably, if you're watching this, you like my version of the wheel. Anyway, whatever, okay? Glad you're here. Super happy you're here. Sometimes it's awkward to talk to a camera. All right, let's continue. So we'll get started with the project updates section of the podcast. So as I mentioned, this is the section of the podcast where I show you what I've been knitting on over the course of the past week. So let me get started with my first project, which is a finished object. This has been on the podcast for a few episodes at this point, and it is now dun da da da, a finished object. I don't want to mess up the mic. The mic stresses me out because I feel like if I move my body the wrong way, there will be all this kerfuffle noise. So I'm going to put a shot in here of what the Grettir looks like on, and I'll take that shot after I finish actually filming the podcast. So here it is here. Look how this sweater looks upon my body. All right, welcome back. You've seen me wearing the Grettir, and actually you have a bit of an unfair advantage over me because I haven't tried this on while I'm sitting here talking. This might mess with your mind because you've just seen a shot of me trying this on, but the version of myself sitting down here filming this right now, today, in this moment, I haven't tried this on, and the clip of me wearing it that you just saw, I haven't filmed yet, so, you know, time is a flat circle, yada, yada, yada. But I'm assuming that I really like the fit of this. So, as I've mentioned, I sized it down with this pattern. I made the 4th size, which is written for a 42-inch bust. I am anywhere from a 50 to a 52-inch bust, so this would have considerable negative ease if I had hit gauge. I am quite a loose knitter, or at least I often am compared to many of the knitwear designers whose patterns I choose to make. So sizing down usually is my, I don't know, habit, necessity, MO, however you want to conceptualize it. I often size down either in needle size or garment size, often both. So in this case, I did not size down needles. I only sized down pattern size. And I think that it is going to fit just fine. When I was blocking this, I was able to stretch it out to be a 50-inch bust. So that's perfect. I've learned about myself and my preferences that I like less ease. So I think that this will be a great fit, literally and figuratively for my wardrobe and the things I wear. So I'm looking forward to having this in rotation this fall and winter. I plan to wear it in Ireland. As I mentioned last week, I'm very curious to see how this holds up in terms of pilling. I'm not sure if this is going to be a very pilly fabric because my other sweater made out of non-superwash hand-dyed wool is quite pill prone. So we'll see with this. I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know. Before I move on from this sweater, I just want to tell you a little bit about the yarn that it's made out of. I've raved about the yarn on this channel before, and I have no plans to stop doing that. So, you know what to expect moving forward. This is Sam's yarn, Sam of Clockwork Fiber Co. She's an indie dyer based out of Connecticut, and I think that she is one of the most underrated indie dyers whose yarn I've worked with. Like, I don't know why her yarn hasn't taken the internet by storm, and I've kind of made it my mission to basically solve that problem in the world because the yarn is so good. This particular base that I knit this in is called Analog Worsted, and it's a 100% non-superwash American wool. And when I tell you this is so soft but also substantial, I feel those words like might not give you, let me try to explain myself. So I feel like when we describe, or at least in my mind, when yarn is described as being soft as butter or soft as a cloud, I have no problem with those descriptions, but I've realized that my own associations, like when I picture that a yarn that's described that way, I think of it as being like so soft that maybe it's not strong, like wispy, maybe, if that makes sense. But this yarn is so sturdy and structured and substantial while also being super soft, while also being grippy. So maybe that helps you picture something. It's not wispy. It's not gonna break in your hands. It's really substantial and sturdy. I really like this yarn. So I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll continue to say it. If you haven't tried the analog line of yarn from Sam of Clockwork Fiber Co., put it on your list of yarns to try one day. It's superb. She has this fiber base on fingering weight, on DK weight, and on worsted weight. So there's something for everyone. I really recommend this yarn. Also a note on Sam's yarn, when I blocked this, I had 0 color bleeding, which is not a deal breaker when that happens, but it can be a nail biter if you're blocking something that is color work, particularly if there's white in the color work. You don't want your darker colors to bleed and then impact the lighter color and change the integrity of the original color. So there was absolutely no color bleeding when I blocked this, which is always like, wow, the attention to detail, the quality control that goes into Sam's yarn, I am always impressed with and a fan of. So if you ever want to try Sam's yarn, I definitely recommend it. You can find her on Instagram at Clockwork Fiber Co. and online at clockworkfiberco.com. So there you go. That's my Grettir. I knit this, as I've mentioned, all over Scotland throughout the Scotland trip, and then I finished it upon my return to my home. But I'm really excited that this is done. This is a finished object. This is yarn that I've had since February, so it feels good to have this done, finished. It's no longer like on my to-do list because it's done. I should also say with that, this was gifted yarn. I did not buy this yarn. I did not purchase this yarn. So another element of having this be finished is having the mental load off my shoulders of saying, oh, I really need to knit this sample to, you know, show the world Sam's yarn because it's so good. I've done that, and now I can move on to the next thing, which coincidentally is going to be more of Sam's yarn, which I'll tell you about a little later in the episode. So there's the update on my Grettir. As always, if you ever want more information on any of the projects that I mention here, I almost always have the Ravelry project page linked in the video description. And on my Ravelry project page, I almost always have more detailed notes about the process of knitting it. So if you're ever curious, feel free to add me as a friend on Ravelry and snoop around on my project pages. I'm trying to be more and more detailed with every project, so hopefully that's helpful for you if you'd like any guidance or insight onto how I approach knitting a pattern. So there's the Grettir. The next pattern that I have to update you on is my Azucena by Claudia Quintanilla, and I told myself that I would bring it in here because the last few times that I've mentioned it on the podcast, I've mentioned it and I've said it's in the other room and I don't want to go get it. But I think that ends today. Let me go grab it. All right, I have it. Here it is, folks. This is my Azucena. This is a colorwork yoke pullover. It is knit with one strand of fingering weight and one strand of mohair. And this has kind of become my purse project or my TV project because I'm working on the body, as you can see. So it's just plain stockinette in the round. And I did work on this a few separate times this week. I probably maybe got a total of 20 or so rows in on the body. I worked on that during the Olympics, during a movie where I didn't really need to have the light on. Yeah, so that's just been a handy project to have. And I've kind of picked up steam to be finishing projects. So I've been working on that a little bit more than I might have during other weeks because I'm motivated to get my whip list whittled down to nothing. But who knows if that will continue to happen or be sustainable. My creative energy goes where it's gonna go, and I'm trying to work on feeling less bad about it. Like I'm trying to go with the flow a little bit more and lean into the fact that this is the hobby that I do for enjoyment, and like I don't want to be constrained, you know, whether it's my own mental constraints placed on myself or whatever. Anyway, I worked on that a little bit this week. And then let me tell you another thing that I worked on that I swatched for. So if you follow Leslie of Knit California, you'll know about this. And if you don't follow her, you should. You can subscribe to her here on YouTube or follow her on Instagram and TikTok. Her handle everywhere on the internet that I'm aware of is Knit California. Anyway, she is designing her first garment pattern, and I am one of the pattern testers. So I am very excited to be swatching for the California sweater. However, none of my 3 swatches, I am pretty sure none of them meet gauge for the pattern. I haven't measured post blocking, but I'm not really invested in these swatches anymore, which I'll get to, I'm sure, through my ramblings. But let me first tell you my thought process with these swatches. Basically, Leslie has designed a garment that is similar in spirit to the Lento, which is a sweater that I've made twice now and that I would love to continue making. It's a really quick knit. It's really enjoyable, despite some errors in the pattern with the increase shaping. But the final piece, the finished object, is something that I really like having in my wardrobe. Basically, the Lento is knit with one strand of fingering weight yarn and one strand of lace weight yarn, and it's knit on fairly large needles. The pattern calls for a US 10 needle, which is, I believe, 6 millimeters. It's a big needle, okay? So the big needle paired with the relatively thin yarn, one strand of fingering, one strand of lace, makes quite an airy, open garment. So the Lento is a raglan sweater, and Leslie has designed a drop shoulder sweater with similar yarn used and similar gauge. So it's an open gauge drop shoulder sweater. Now, I don't really have yarn in my yarn collection that is not dedicated to another project that fits the bill for Leslie's California Sweater test knit. I need 3 skeins of lace weight, preferably mohair or Surrey, so a fluffy lace weight, and then 3 skeins of fingering weight. So since I don't really have those available, I have skeins of lace and I have skeins of fingering, but for the most part, they're dedicated to other projects. But I do have some skeins in my library or my yarn collection or my yarn stash that do fit the bill of a fuzzy yarn that prior to living my life this last week, I thought would be a good fit for the California sweater. So the first example I have is the Treehouse Knits Magnolia Brush Merino. And let me grab a skein off my yarn wall so you can see what it looks like in skein form. So this is the Magnolia Brush Merino. As you can see, it is quite fluffy. So this is a 90% extra fine superwash merino wool and a 10% nylon, and the merino is brushed. On this label it says that it's a worsted or Aran weight, but since these labels were made, which was during the first release of this yarn base from Treehouse Knits, it's since been determined that this is more of a DK weight. It just doesn't work up to a worsted or Aran weight gauge. So I thought that would be perfect for the California sweater. So I swatched it. This was my first swatch, and it was on US size 10 needles. When I make swatches, I put, it's really difficult to see on this swatch, but I put purl bumps that correlate to the number of the needle size that I'm using. So on this swatch, there are 10 purl bumps in the bottom right hand corner of the swatch. This one might be easier to see. This one I think was on US 5. So there are 5 purl bumps down in this corner. Of course, now it doesn't want to focus on this swatch. But anyway, there's a helpful trick for you when you're swatching, because who has time or the space in their brain to remember what needle size they swatched on? So I just imprint that into the fabric itself. But anyway, I swatched on size US 10. The fabric was far too airy. My pre-blocked gauge on this swatch was something like 10 stitches over 4 inches. And the swatch that I was going for was an unblocked gauge of 18 stitches and a blocked gauge of 15 stitches over 4 inches. So then I swatched on size, what is this? Let me count the purl bumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. On size 7, my unblocked gauge I think was 14 stitches, something around there. Again, I still haven't measured the blocked gauge, so maybe these ended up being perfect. I should probably measure that. And then I swatched on size 5. So by this point, I'm still not meeting gauge, or at least I wasn't when I was knitting. Let me just measure these right now so I can tell you for sure if I am a failure or not. Stand by. Okay, so I have my ruler here. Let me just see. So on the size 10 needles, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 stitches over 4 inches. That's way too open of a gauge, so this is not going to work for the California sweater. Confirmed. How about on my size 7 needles? Let's see here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 stitches over 4 inches. So again, this is not going to work. Confirmed. All right, let's measure this final swatch on size 5s. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, 14 inches over, or 14 stitches over 4 inches. So this is close. It's close to being on gauge. But the thing is, do I want to go all the way down to a size 5 needle to knit a pattern that's written for a size 10 needle? Probably not. Probably not. And this is still fairly an open gauge because it's meeting the gauge that Leslie mentioned, but it's not this airy, light fabric that is in the spirit of the pattern. It's a little bit too dense for what we're looking for. So yeah, these 3 swatches, which by the way, if you're new here, I'll just give you just a fact that I'll share, which is I'm really mad at the process of swatching right now. I've had some swatching endeavors really bite me in the butt recently, to the extreme extent that for 2 separate garments, I knit up a full skein as a swatch, and my garment still did not fit the way that my knitting was telling me it would, according to pattern. So I'm not like necessarily in the die-hard swatch before you cast on camp, but since this is a test knit for my best friend, obviously I'm going to go above and beyond, aka do the bare minimum, and make sure I hit gauge. So this yarn, the Magnolia Brush Merino from Treehouse Knits, is not going to work for the California sweater, but the good news is that I have 3 different metrics now to know how this will knit up, you know, give or take, because we're still not sold on swatching over here. But I have three data points that I can use to make an educated guess for a different pattern. So this Magnolia Brush Merino, the few skeins that I have, still may well be used. Also, if you just heard an email, that was my email going off. You didn't just get an email. You don't have to be scared. No one is trying to find you well today, except me. I hope you're well. Okay, so let's continue. So there's the update with the California sweater. So I mentioned that I will be knitting more with some Clockwork Fiber Co. Basically, after I kept hitting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, finding the gauge for this. Oh, I also swatched on Treehouse Knits Truffle Cashmere, held double, and that wasn't working either. So I'm waiting on some yarn from Sam of Clockwork Fiber Co. She is sending me 3 skeins of Surrey and 3 skeins of fingering weight yarn, which is what I knit my last Lento on, and I'll be using that gauge to cast on the California sweater once those skeins arrive. So I'm looking forward to that. But I needed something to work on and to pass the time while I was waiting for the yarn from Sam to arrive. So another project that I have to update you on now is what I'm wearing. This is the Clove sweater. I can't even remember who the designer of the Clove sweater is. Stand by. Okay, so the Clove sweater is designed by Rachel Kurihara. Another Rachel, great. This yarn is Skein in the Stitch yarn. It is the colorway called Lady Death from Jess's Accord of Ashen Starlight collection, which is the Sarah J. Maas Universe inspired collection she had last year in November. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. This is on fingering weight and Surrey held together. And I'm very pleased. I did not make the size that the pattern says I should have made the size in, because let's see. The pattern is meant to be worn with how much ease? More ease than I like. Intended positive ease of 6 to 10 inches. Absolutely not. I do not like how that looks on my body, so I wasn't interested in that. I haven't measured this, and in fact, I haven't even blocked this. I put this sweater on to make a reel this morning, and then I just kept it on when I started filming the podcast. So I don't really know. It might be a little bit looser after I block it. The arms might lengthen a bit. Whatever, but otherwise it's done, just besides the blocking. The ends are woven in, you know, it has sleeves, it has a collar. Okay, let me focus and tell you about the process of knitting this sweater. So Jess sent me this yarn last November to help promote her collection, her Sarah J. Maas collection. I posted about it. I started working on the clove sweater. I went through this sweater lightning fast. I got the yarn on, I want to say November 7th, on or around November 7th. And then by December 4th, I had finished my first attempt at a sleeve, but I didn't like the decrease rate. Not the pattern's decrease rate, my own decrease rate that was like, what was I thinking? I don't know. I just like decided to go off-road. But I didn't like it. So I put the sweater in the freezer. A few days later, I frogged the sleeve. So that was in December. And then yesterday, July 28th, I finished the sweater. So basically, this sweater was a vest. It had no sleeves, and it was sitting in a project bag in my whip basket for the entirety of 2024 so far. And then hitting the roadblocks with the California swatching, not having the yarn to cast on the actual California sweater that I would make yet. I figured, you know, now's the time. Over the course of this weekend, I'm going to finish this sweater. I actually was less ambitious than that. I was telling DJ, my husband, that I think I'll make it my goal for the course of this week, meaning the end of July, beginning of August, this week of July 29th, I would finish one sleeve on my clove sweater. And lo and behold, before the week even starts, it was done. So I'm really, really happy with that. I lost yarn chicken, actually, and I think you can tell once I explain to you what I did. I lost yarn chicken with the fingering weight skein only, 5 rows before the end of this sleeve cuff. I have another skein of this on both fingering and Surrey, but it felt absurd to wind up one skein of fingering weight yarn to do 5 rows of a cuff and then a bind off. So what I opted to do instead was I held the Surrey skein triple to finish that last 5 rows. And if you know what you're looking for, I think you can see it. This last chunk is fluffier, and thus it kind of, you know, it sticks out more. It's not cinched to my wrist like that first sleeve, but I don't care. I'd rather have a completed sweater and one whole skein left over than to have 2 cuffs that are equally stitched, if that makes sense. And I can assess this after blocking to see what's what, if I need to add elastic to the cuff or not. So yeah, the clove sweater is done. It only took me, when all was said and done, let's see, 8 months to make. When really it could have been done in 1 month if I had just done these dang sleeves. But sometimes you hit a roadblock and you just need to remove yourself from the situation for 7 months, 7.5, 8 months to, you know, give yourself space, and then you can do it lickety split, lightning fast. So that's what happened with my clove sweater. I enjoyed knitting this sweater. And I think I would recommend it, but I need to look back at my notes, both on Ravelry and in my project notes on the GoodNotes app that I use for digital pattern viewing and annotating, you know, to confirm this with you. So there's the update on my clove sweater, and I have one more project to update you on before we move on to the next section, so let me grab it. Okay, I'm back. It might not seem like I went anywhere, but I did. I had a FaceTime call with my mom to talk about the upcoming Scotland trip. So quick reminder to make sure you're signing up for my email list. I know I've been teasing this for weeks and weeks and weeks, but it is so close to being ready for signups to open. So if you're on the email list, you'll be among the first to be able to sign up, and spots are limited. When they fill up, they're gone. So sign up for the email list. The link is in the video description. Okay, focus. We're still on project updates, people. And this is the project I have to update you on. It is hanging on the brink of a knife. Destruction. Failure. This is a whale. Can you tell? This is a whale. Say hello to my whale. Yeah, that's what I'm calling my Gepard Orca Stuffy. The pattern is the Orca Arlic pattern by Steffi Hochfellner, and it's basically a stuffed animal orca. And it was in my WIP basket. It's part of my mountain of unfinished projects. And I thought, hey, I finished the Grettir, and I should finish another project before I cast on my California sweater, or by cast on I mean swatch. So in the period of time between finishing that Clockwork Grettir and swatching for my California sweater, I tried to finish my Gepard orca stuffy, and it was kind of a nightmare, I'll tell you. I remember from when I first was working on this orca stuffy back in April, March, April, May, a while ago, earlier this year, when I was using this blue yarn, these two shades of blue, there was quite a bit of, what is that called? Is it called corking? That phenomenon when you're using yarn and the dye stains your hands, like where the yarn is resting on your finger, particularly if you knit continental like me, you'll get like two blue lines or a blue line where the yarn is sliding across your finger. Well, that happened to me with this yarn, but more than that, like it stained my fingertips, it stained my palms. I was really disappointed with this yarn, to be quite honest with you. And it feels uncomfortable for me to say because this yarn was gifted to me, it was sent to me. Like, it's like the dye is just not set. It's so frustrating and disappointing. So anyway, I picked up the Orca Stuffy project to finish it, and when I was finishing the body of the orca, this was happening again, and I was being reminded at how much this yarn transfers. The dye just is not, it's not set like it should be. It was staining my hands. Maybe stain is an aggressive word for what was happening, but my hands were turning blue. I could wash it off, but that shouldn't be happening to that extent when you're knitting with a yarn. So I persevered. I finished the body of the orca, and I really should just unpin this because it's dry. There's no point to have it pinned out still. But I started seaming the pieces together. This is one piece, this dark blue, and this is another piece, this light blue with some dark blue intarsia. So this line here is a seam, a mattress stitch seam, to bring these two pieces as one. So I was seaming it together. The next step would be to seam this outer edge with this outer edge, so it becomes an orca-shaped shell, which you then stuff. But I thought, you know, if I continue sewing this, I'm not going to have any chance to block it. So after I finished seaming that one side of the two pieces together, I decided to try and wash out the excess dye on these skeins that hadn't properly set for whatever reason. I washed these, or not these skeins, I washed that piece, that knitted piece, 7 times with a gentle lavender soap, and still, even after the 7th wash and rinse, the water that was coming off of that knitted piece was a bright, vibrant blue. This is not something that should be happening with yarn. So I was really frustrated. I was very disappointed because all my hard work was seemingly going to be fruitless. And I was texting Leslie about this, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? I don't want to gift this to someone and have, like, let's say I gift it to someone who's expecting a baby and they put this in the crib and the dye gets on the baby, or the dye stains the sheets or the baby's clothes. Like, this is not, like, to say nothing of safety, this is just not a pleasant thing to make someone else experience. So I wasn't comfortable with the idea of gifting it. I wasn't comfortable with the idea of having it in my own house, like on my own furniture, in my own bed, to stain things. So yeah, but also equally, the idea of just throwing away this shell of a whale seemed not really something I was thrilled about doing either. So basically I was mad for a day. And then I decided, well, I messaged Sam, I messaged Brandy of Long Dog Yarn, and I kind of picked their brains and asked for their expertise as yarn dyers. And they gave me a few ways that I could help mitigate this extreme dye bleed. But I am not going to go through all that trouble to set the dye on the leftover yarn, but what I am going to do is I'm going to attempt to set the dye on the finished knitted piece. So I've decided I'm going to finish knitting the fins for the orca, and then once I have all of the pieces that will be seamed together knit up, then I will try and set the dye. So I have some dye pans, I have vinegar, I think I have his citric acid. If not, it's not that difficult to get. So I'm going to try and set the dye with my dye materials on the knit up pieces. The rest of this is gonna hurt to hear, but I'm throwing this away. This, like, I cannot in good conscience destash this yarn. I cannot give it to someone. I don't want to use it for the reasons aforementioned. So this will be going into the garbage, which I don't know. It brings me no pleasure to say that or to do that, but that's just the state of things, and that's the choice I'll be making. So I'm gonna finish the orca, try and set the dye, and I mean, hopefully that works. If not, I guess I'll have to consider throwing away the knitted piece as well. I don't know, but you have to understand the amount of dye bleed is atrocious. It's so much, and it's not like, I've never dealt with this before. This is like, I don't know if it was a milling issue. I know some dyers have had some bad batches of yarn sent to them where the yarn itself absorbed like oil or something in the process of it being milled due to some machine malfunctions happening on the mill site, and that yarn was then sent to the dyers and it just did not absorb the dye through no fault of their own. So I'm wondering maybe if that's what happened here. But you know, either way, no matter what the cause is, this yarn is not usable. It's just such a bummer. Like, it's not what you expect, and it's not what you want. Nobody wants something like this to happen. So yeah, it's just frustrating. So that's the update on my Gepard Orca Stuffy. Still have plans to finish it, although I am resigning myself to it might be a colossal failure, even despite my best efforts, even despite my due diligence. But I'll keep you updated all the same. So there you go. I really liked this yarn. I really liked the colors, but after this experience, I definitely would not recommend it, which is a bummer. It really is. So there's the update. And with that, all my project updates have been addressed. Before I move into what is usually the next section, which is my spin diary, I want to tell you a little bit about some project plans I have. So since I am in this moment of feeling unstoppable and that I can finish the whips that I started long ago, as evidenced by the clove sweater currently on my body, I'm debating finishing my Stria cardigan. It only needs a button band and sleeves, and then it will be done. Let me show you this Stria cardigan here. The story with this is that I tried to do a double knit button band, which is different than what the pattern calls for. My tension was all wrong, so I frogged it, and then it hurt my feelings, and I put it away to be banished for over a year at this point. It's been banished. But it's going to get a lot of wear once it's done, so I'm kind of thinking maybe I should start working on it again. What do you think? Work on the Stria, new cast on, both. Let me know what you think I should do in the comments. But yeah, there's kind of a project plan that's kicking around in my brain. I haven't fully committed to it yet, but I am considering hurting my own feelings again and picking my Stria back up. Other project plans on my periphery include the Felix cardigan. I've mentioned this a few times before. I want to knit it with my sweater quantity of fairy thimbles from Clockwork Fiber Co, which is up in the top right-hand corner. Well, left-hand corner, right-hand corner, whatever. It's in this corner of my yarn wall. I have it on analog DK and chime Surrey. So holding those two together, gonna be so good. Another thing on my project periphery is my Colette sweater. So let me pull out my Colette sweater. This is a project that I started earlier this year. This is yarn that Selena sent me to promote the Bridgerton collection, which was a huge success. But I was looking at my Ravelry notes and I realized that I cast on the size that would give me 9 inches of positive ease, which, as we know, is not my preference. That is not something that I like the look of or the feel of on my body. And so I have this sweater. I should measure it just to confirm. This is going to be 9 inches positive ease. But if that is true, I don't want to keep working on this. I want to use this yarn for something else. So I was thinking maybe the Rosa cardigan would be pretty, but as Leslie pointed out, it's basically the Felix cardigan. The V-neck lightweight Felix cardigan. So I don't know, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll one day cast the Colette pullover on in a smaller size. It really is gorgeous. It's making a beautiful fabric, but I don't want to keep working on this if it's going to be 59 inches finished bust circumference, because I just don't like wearing that. So I'll keep you updated on that. But those are some of the projects on my periphery for maybe future or soon project plans. Short and sweet, not a lot, but I wanted to mention them all the same. Now let me tell you about my spin diary. I didn't do any spinning whatsoever this week. I don't know why, I just didn't feel like it. So there's the spin diary. Sorry. Okay, let's move on to the next section, which is acquisitions. Let me lean in even closer this time. I don't have any acquisitions. None, none. So there you go. If you hate acquisitions, and you are like, you shake your fist at the commercialization of yarn hauls. Urgh! I don't have any to show you this week, so I joined your ranks. No yarn hauls. There you go. Hope you're proud of me. Okay, now let's move on to the final section of the podcast, which is announcements. First announcement is super exciting. There are 3,000 of you now watching me here on YouTube, so thank you so much. Posting on YouTube has been really, really fun, kind of intimidating, kind of anxiety inducing. I'm kind of curious to see if I can build a large following twice in my life on different platforms. So I feel like I've done it on Instagram. I mean, not comparatively, but in my mind, it's like, wow, what? So here on YouTube to reach 3K feels really, 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 really good. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And I'm really glad you're here. Which leads me to my next announcement, which is that the fact that there are 3,000 of you and counting is largely due to my Scotland recap video that went live this past Saturday. I don't know what it was. Something was in the air on Saturday, and a lot of you were in the mood to watch Scotland stuff, and you clicked on that video and you subscribed to my channel. So thank you so much. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the second installment is coming, so don't worry, I haven't forgotten. It's not going to be a cliffhanger for you. You will see the rest of the trip in installments, so rest assured those are coming. And last but not least, my email list. So as I mentioned earlier when I came back after the FaceTime call, if you want to be among the first people to sign up for the Scotland and other upcoming trips, I let my email list know ahead of time. So if you watched the Scotland trip and you were kind of confused about the context, I'll tell you, hi, I'm Rachel, and I do a lot of things here on the internet, mostly share what I'm knitting or spinning or, I don't know, what I find funny or heartwarming at any given time of any given day. And also, I work with my mom to put on some premier knitting tours in some nice destinations. We work with a company called Knitting Tours to contract our private tours, so it's a great time. You get lots of good knitting in, you attend knitting workshops to learn new skills, you see amazing sights, you make amazing memories, and most importantly, you make lifelong friends. So if any of that seems interesting to you, definitely make sure that you're signed up for my email list so you get first dibs to sign up for future tours. The space is extremely limited on these tours. Most of them max out at 25 people, so there's a lot of you, not a lot of spots on the knitting tours, so make sure you're on the email list to get first dibs for signups. Okay, what else did I have to announce to you? The semester's starting soon, so my time will no longer be my own. So I don't know what that's going to do for my upload schedule. I'm hoping that it will not affect it. I'm hoping that I can balance it as much as possible to still be able to upload 3 times a week. But I'll let you know if that changes. You know, I'll keep you posted. I hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are knitting something that you're enjoying. Remember, this is the hobby we do for enjoyment. So if it's not bringing you joy, put that project down and pick something else up. You'll thank me later. So that's it. I hope you like this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you don't already, and hit that notification bell to be notified of my next upload. Last but not least, head over to Instagram and follow me at Rachel is Knitting if you don't already. All right, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.